I'm a sucker for LEGO games. When I came to America, the first ever game I played was actually LEGO Batman, and ever since then, I've just been enamored by LEGO games in general. I've played the LEGO movie game, LEGO Indiana Jones, LEGO City, LEGO Star Wars, LEGO Avengers, and while I only ever actually finished LEGO City, I still loved and enjoyed these games heavily, which is why when almost every single LEGO game went on sale about a year ago, I went on a little shopping spree. And during my shopping spree, I ended up buying the LEGO Harry Potter collection, even though I still hadn't even watched the movies at the time. Not to mention, I only played a little bit of it before just letting my console gather dust. But since I've been going on a little Harry Potter speedrun marathon over here, I decided to check out this game Speedrun as well. It's a LEGO game. I thought the game would be pretty simple and just fun. But holy hell, I was not expecting a LEGO game to have one of the most complicated and frustrating speedruns I've ever experienced before. Just a quick heads up, there is a major spoiler for the Goblet of Fire in this video, so if you haven't seen the movie despite it being 18 years old, just be aware. Besides the run's precise jumps and complicated text and glitches, this run requires more than just skill. It requires the ability to multitask effectively. By that I mean you literally have to play as both characters most of the time, which obviously means having to use two controllers simultaneously. This was one of the ways I had to set up my arms during this speedrun. And yes, I did mean one of the ways because sometimes I literally used my nose or mouth to press the button because my brain just didn't know what to do with my fingers and panicked. Anyways, for the speedrun itself, I decided to go for the no cut 5 category. This is a separate category from standard as it allows you the option to skip cutscenes by inputting a cheat code. It's a great thing that I played this category because if I had it, this run would have taken me over 5 hours, let me tell you what. So the speedrun begins in the Leaky Cauldron, and already we have our first instance of 1P2C, short for 1 player, 2 controllers or characters. This was actually where I used my mouth to jump and get Harry on this platform a little early, saving about 0.1 seconds and adding about 50 viruses to my controller. After the Leaky Cauldron, we move into Diagon Alley, where I already had my first brain shutdown. Why am I holding B, my dumbass? Fuck! Oh my god, Hagrid, where are you going? It's not that I can't keep track of both the characters I'm controlling, it's just that my brain struggles remembering which controller is for which character. Anyways, after we break into Fort Knox, we move on to Hogwarts where, after hyping myself up over the most mediocre time save of the run, there we go, that's what I'm talking about, baby. Ooh, it's clean! We enter the Wingardium Leviosa lesson. One character has to be thrown to the right in order to save the student, while the other runs to the opposite side and uses this piece to get on top. After struggling quite a bit on one of the easiest rooms in the run, I finish the lesson and move on to the next major part of the run, the Troll. It's here in this level where we get our first instance of both a Ron warp and a recall jump. This game has a really weird mechanic where aiming at Ron with Wingardium Leviosa as he pulls out Scabbers and falls off a ledge teleports him to a predetermined spot depending on what part of the game is loaded. There is also another mechanic known as recall jump where recalling Scabbers allows for Ron to just double jump. So in the beginning of the level, we want to first recall jump into this little corner in between the flower pot and bookshelf. Once here, we just want to move our thumbstick around in this corner and spam jump until we can reach the top of this bookshelf. Now that we're on top of the bookshelf, we want to position ourselves in the middle and slightly on the edge, making sure either our wand is put away or that we're facing a direction where the game will immediately push us off. All that's left to do is perform a Ron warp and you'll find yourself on the other end of the hall, skipping the entire maze section with Scabbers and saving us a good amount of time. Once on the other side, we want to recall jump onto this little bookshelf and do a bit of platforming to drop the next item we must build. Now we can do one of two things. We can either run just far enough to the right and back to trigger the boulder without getting soft locked and then give the statue her trident, or we can give her the trident first and then just run to spawn the boulder. Either way, you can move on to the troll boss fight. In the troll boss fight, there's one little time save you can do by running to this specific line on the floor, and if you're lucky, this skips the little animation he does in the beginning, saving a little bit of time. But other than that, the level plays out as normal. And then we have a little more 1P2C with the Lumos and Strength Potion lessons, and as you may have already been able to tell, I did not do these perfectly. Get out of my way, Professor, whatever the f his name was. Where's it? Oh my god, it went back up. Harry, this is your fault. Oh my god, where am I going with Harry? Anyways, after Snape's little dungeon, we get our first instance of what is known as a Lumos jump. By activating Lumos, then switching to another spell, you have a small window of time where you can perform a double jump. You can combine this with a buffer jump, which is where you spam jump in the air so that you jump as soon as you land on top of an object, which should allow you to reach places normally closed off. Though of course, the setups and the jump itself can sometimes be quite hard. And in this instance, we have to jump on this little light and then Lumos jump from that onto this torch and then up and over the stairs and into the transfiguration room. Now after acquiring transfiguration, Lumos Solum, and also just struggling to hit a flower, we move on to one of the bigger skips of the game, Bridge Warp. Using the mechanics of a Ron Warp on this bridge, we can teleport underneath Hagrid's hut, where all we want to do is just spam jump while holding down on our controller to bring ourselves back into the overworld. This skip can be quite tricky. If Ron doesn't fall off the ledge or you don't spam fast enough, it just won't work. After that, we move on to the first Quidditch match of the game, where we have our first instance of a fig skip. Some walls can actually be climbed up if you spam jump right after the transfiguration. Here you want to have player 2 transfigure you and drop them out so as to only focus on one screen. Next, we want to press ourselves up against this line on the wall so that we can jump up out of bounds. Once here, we want to run forward until we reach this part of the Quidditch field and then jump over this gap, which should allow us to land up here. There is an easier setup you can do where you can jump here and then to the next section. However, you should be really careful with this because jumping too far off can soft lock you, so maybe it's just better to do the other setup. Anyways, we're going to want to just run along this platform until we reach this little section where performing a Lumos jump should allow us to progress. After building the bridge and another fig skip against this wall, we have a slightly more challenging Lumos jump. You cannot perform a jump while going off a ledge, which means you have to jump prior. You're going to want to jump from this bookshelf without moving at all, and as soon as you jump, aim towards the right of the ladder and buffer another jump so that you can reach the ending trigger. And now we're onto a quite scary trick, bridge jumping. What we want to do is reach the other side of this bridge without actually building it. And to do that, we want to jump as far as we can with one player while simultaneously building the bridge, but only enough to get to the other side. After a little more traversing, we're onto one of the more interesting fig skips of the game. The way I learned it, there are two different setups you can do depending on which animal you transform into. If you transform into the rat, you're gonna want to position yourself in between this torch and the door frame while Harry gets eaten by the book. If you transform into the frog, you're gonna want to position yourself in between this table and stack of books, making sure not to go too deep, and position Harry to the right of the door. Either way, once you transform back, you should be able to climb over the wall, and by running towards the door and back, the section is over. In this next room, we're going to perform another fig skip. This time around, the setup against this wall is the same whether you transform into a rat or a frog, so it's pretty easy to do. And now after finishing up that section and unlocking the mirror, that level is complete. Then we perform another bridge warp to enter Hagrid's hut and move on to the Forbidden Forest. This section has quite a bit of precise Lumos jumps. First, we want to drop out player 2 as we're going to spawn them in a little later. Then we want to run down here where after destroying this little weed, we can perform a Lumos jump onto this ledge. We want to aim around here while also getting a little running head start, as that's what I found works best for me. Once we reach the top, we want to run to the right, and just as we pass this red mushroom, we want to call in player 2, which should teleport him up top by the time he spawns in. After progressing through the level quite normally, we reach this section where once again we want to drop out player 2. Here, we want to run straight and jump on top of this little elevation where we can perform an easy Lumos jump while aiming for this little section of the ledge. After that, we have a really challenging Lumos jump. We want to position ourselves just slightly away from the wall and aim for this little corner. This can be really tough as the game just sometimes doesn't want to cooperate and just keeps pushing you off. We'll fucking lose it! But after that, we have one more Lumos jump where we just position ourselves on top of this thing and jump up and into the trigger, ending this level. I hate that fucking level. And now we're on to the final level of year 1. We progress normally until we reach the chest room. Here, we're going to perform a little complicated fig skip. We want player 2 to transfigure us and then drop them out as they will no longer be needed. Now, we want to push ourselves against the right side of this door frame and just keep tapping right until we can see our shadow reach this little part of the wall. And now, once we return to normal, we can climb up this wall and into the ceiling. Once Harry lands, you're going to want to jump and tap right to move to a safer position. Now we want to jump and pause our game right at the peak of our jump. While in the pause menu, we want to hold up and right on the D-pad while simultaneously unpausing and pausing about 3 or so times, or once if you're a Chad like me. Now we're going to want to continue spam pausing until we can just barely see the top of this door frame on our screen. Best way to do this is press A or X to unpause and then immediately pause after. Once we see the door frame, we can just hold up on the D-pad and unpause, which should trigger the cutscene. The final boss fight plays out as normal, and once finished, we can move on to year 2. Year 2 begins pretty casual gradually. Some more 1P2C and a couple of neutral and ledge Ron warps. Nothing too complicated. Now we move on to the Immobilist challenge. Instead of going through the soy boy route by breaking this glass, we want to Lumos jump onto whatever this thing is and continue holding forward so we don't get pushed off. As we hold forward, we want to let go completely for a split second and then hold forward again while simultaneously buffer jumping, which should allow you to get over this little wall. And after some more progressing and another bridge warp, we can move on to the next Quidditch match of the game, which is honestly quite frustrating. We want to start off by falling down this ledge and Lumos jumping off this white thing and hit Dobby. After we hit Dobby, we're going to perform one hell of a jump. You can either do this by jumping at the last second possible and then just buffer jumping to get to the next section, or you can perform a Lumos jump to get over. However, like I said earlier, a Lumos jump cannot be performed while going off a ledge, meaning you must get a little running head start and perform the jump at the last possible frame and then buffer a jump. This of course can be sometimes quite frustrating. No, that was bad. What? Oh, I'm gonna... Hermione, you're such a... It's Hermione's fault. It's literally all her fault. Ow. Anyways, after destroying these plants, you're going to want to bring back player 2 if you drop them out, and once you see this black lines move, drop them out again to skip a camera pan. Now we just want to perform one more Lumos jump here, and we move on to the next section. We're going to want to jump and hit Dobby, and right after, run over and Lumos jump onto this ledge. After the animation plays, you want to bring back player 2 and have him hit Dobby out of the cabinet, while player 1 drops down the bridge. Once again, you want to drop player 2 the moment you see the black bar moving to skip another camera pan, and then just quickly finish off the section. This last section has a nice little camera pan skip where we want to position Ron to the right of the door, where, after putting the skull on the skeleton, we want to immediately run out of the room. Once we return, the arm should be on the table ready for us to pick up, and that's the end of this level. The next few parts of the game are purely 1P2C optimization with very minor skips. For example, here we can just stun lock Draco by hitting him right after the red fades away. There's also this section where running out of the room while simultaneously activating the cutscene can skip it altogether, which is mainly helpful in the standard category. After we get the Polyjuice potion, we have another Lumos jump here. First, we want to Lumos jump right in between this gong and vase, while also activating Lumos again so we don't get pushed off. Now we want to normally jump onto this vase, and then from here Lumos jump as late as possible and onto this fence while also buffering a jump so we can get onto this balcony. And now after some more 1P2C optimization, we reach the Slytherin's lobby, which we can quickly end by positioning Ron in this corner, pulling out Scabbers, having him run down to this water fountain, and then just recalling him, which should trigger the cutscene. And then we can just finish up the level normally. After a little Myrtle boss fight, we're on to one of the more challenging 1P2Cs of the game, which I'm only bringing up because holy hell, I just can't do it. Out of the way. Whatever the hell that guy's name is. Anyways, in this little section, you want to perform a Lumos jump from the 4th step with both characters and then progress through the level as normal. After bridge warping the Hagrid, I'm gonna lose my mind. We move back into the hidden forest. Here, we want to perform a little simple Lumos jump onto this ledge as Harry and climb up this leaf as Fang to progress. Now we want to drop out player 2 and Lumos jump off this flower and onto this ledge. Once here, we want to run to the right, and just before we reach these mushrooms and trigger the camera pan, we want to call in player 2, and if done correctly, it should spawn him up right up here with us. In the Aragog fight, there's a slight time save we can do where we can push the black spiders into him as opposed to having to throw it at him with Wingardium Leviosa. After Aragog, we're into the chase sequence where it'd just be easier to drop out either player 1 or 2 depending on your preference. Just know if any spiders latch onto you, you will go slower. How? Harry, tell me you're doing better. Oh, never mind, I'm sorry. Oh, but Harry doesn't have a spider on his ass. Harry, get the fuck up! What are you doing? Oh my god, you're driving like you're drunk! Oh my god. Don't run, just hit me! Oh, Jesus, Ron. Oh, he's dead. Oh. Where did Ron go? Did he? Oh my god. Now, after bringing Jake Paul into the bathroom, we perform a couple of interesting tricks to finish off this year. If we position Ron right on the door hinges and boost him up with Leviosa, he can reach the top of this stall where he can pull out Scabbers and have him clip into the tube. Just be careful of getting soft locked. I got soft locked. We're also going to want to quickly recall Scabbers and jump off the stall after pushing the last button to also avoid getting soft locked. And now we have to perform another Ron warp. No matter where you do it from, the game will either always warp Scabbers on top of the entrance to the chamber or just slightly behind it, to which just holding up should land you on top. And with that, we can quickly enter the chamber right after opening it. Here we're going to want to perform a Lumos jump off this rock and then jump off and around this corner while also buffering a jump to reach this section where we can just enter the boss fight as normal. The boss fight is played pretty normal. normally, of course using both controllers, with minor text. Having Harry swim towards the right of the basilisk allows for it to break a barrier much earlier than it should, though I didn't get it in my run. And positioning Harry around here while spam casting at the basilisk allows for it to take damage right after the cutscene ends, saving us a bit of time. There is one more glitch though, I'm not sure if it's even possible for console though. It involves pausing the game at the first possible frame of the final cutscene, and then returning to Hogwarts, which should skip the entire first level of Year 3. I say it might not be possible on console because the timing is extremely difficult, whereas on PC, you can do some alt-tabbing and game manipulation to basically pause on every single frame leading up to it. Anyways, after the basilisk is defeated, that marks the end of Year 2, and we can now move on to Year 3. The first section of Year 3 just has minor optimizations, where we can have Harry stand here the entire time using Wingardium Leviosa whenever prompted, while Ron's dad fights the book himself. The next section, apart from 1P2C optimizations, requires you to Lumos jump here to land above the train, and after collecting the part, requires you to buffer jump around this section to get back on top of the train and finish up the section. Now that we're in the train, we want to run over to this corner as Hermione and position Crookshanks to the left of this green doorknob, and once we recall him, it should trigger the cutscene. The next section can be quickly finished by slipping under lock as either the frog or rat. Then we can progress as normal until the last section of the train. Here we want to position Lupin a little bit away from his limit, closer to the window, and make sure he's facing towards the end of the train, and after that position Hermione and sometimes Ron in this little cubby. Lupin can now snipe the Dementors with Patronum like he's in a Call of Duty montage. Patronum! Expect the Patronum! Wait, how in the did Ron get here? After the train, we have some more standard traversing and a bridge warp, and now we're on to the Buckbeak challenge. And oh my god, how much I hate this damn challenge. Aside from the simple Lumos jump, where you just want to stand against this corner and jump onto this ledge, these annoying little shits won't leave me alone and keep making me drop the chicken. Not to mention, the game decided to just say F you and made me go fetch the chicken again for some reason. What? Go in, you cock! Anyways, after another bridge jump and some more traversing, we're in this little cave. Here we want to get this little platform and attach it as far right as possible both times so that we can reach this bridge. We want to jump on top of this little pole and Lumos jump over to this wall while also buffering a jump. Remember, you can't Lumos jump while falling off a ledge, so this might be quite tricky. After getting this platform down, we want to perform another Lumos jump to get over this gap. This one's a little easier. And lastly, we want to stand in this corner and Lumos jump around these stairs by moving your thumbstick in a circle and finish up this section. And now we're on to the fake skip I despise the most. After being transfigured and dropping out player 2, we want to position ourselves right against this window so that we can jump all the way on top of the world and move towards the back of the snowman. This should allow us to land behind it and walk into the trigger. However, in my case, it's a little more complicated than that. How? I'm gonna lose my mind. The fact that I was why me? I don't know where the I just went, dude. I went to Narnia apparently. In this next section, we want to position ourselves in between these fences and have Ron stand over here so that Draco doesn't kill us with his snowballs. What? And after that fake skip, we can finish up the level as normally and press on. Apart from 1P2C, this level has one little skip. First, we want to normally jump on top of this little fountain and then Lumos jump onto this ledge. Now we want to get Filch to catch us right in between these little walls. Now we want the second player to also get up there and distract Mrs. Norris. Once free, you're gonna want to have both characters run into this little corner until the Wingardium Leviosa prompt allows you to drop down the statues and continue on. After acquiring Patronum, we move on to the Whomping Willow boss fight, which actually does have a major skip, but I simply just don't know how to set it up properly as of right now. After progressing through the underground section, we reach these branches, where if we keep running into it as an animal, it should allow us to clip through it once we transform back. This next section starts off with a simple Lumos jump onto this ledge, and as we go forward, we have probably the most frustrating Lumos jump of the game. There are two ways you can go about setting this up. You can either Lumos jump in between this snake's head and neck, making sure you're facing the right way so that you don't get pushed off, or you can have Harry put his wand away, jump onto this little flower and then onto the snake, and just slightly move around until you can finally pull out Lumos again. Either way you choose to do it, you're going to want to perform another Lumos jump to the right, spinning your thumbstick around and aiming around here. After that, we have one more simple Lumos jump, some 1P2C, a little fake skip where we just position ourselves behind this rock, and we're on to the last level of Year 3. First, we can have Harry stand on this barrel, and as Hermione lifts him up with Wingardium Leviosa, have him jump onto this ledge and finish up the section as normal. Then after some more 1P2C, we're back outside where we have one more camera pan skip. After Harry pulls the lever, you immediately want to go through the door you came from, and if you do it correctly, the bridge should be out. And now we're on to the final boss fight, which plays out just as normal, and that's the end of year 3. Now we can move on to the final year of this game, year 4. And I'm going to just say right now that this was actually my first full run of this year. I literally began this run immediately after I had finished learning all its techs and skips, so just keep that in mind while watching. We start off the year in the Quidditch World Cup. Here we play as normal with an added Lumos jump around here. We just want to position ourselves in between these boxes and Lumos jump over them, allowing us to save this man from the tent. And now we're on to a very challenging Hermione warp. Yeah, Skybridge is gone, so only Hermione can warp now. First, we want to jump on this table and perform a warp the same way we did with Ron, which takes us just barely out of bounds. We're going to want to take this path until we fully reach out of bounds and make it to this area. Just be careful, as you might end up running into Harry, which would force you to have to restart the level. Once we're here, we have to take out Crookshanks and have him run this direction and jump right about here. Then we must aim at the middle of this section, and once we clip through the floor, we want to turn slightly left and spam jump, which should trigger the cutscene. And just as a disclaimer, this was the best way I could explain it, as it is what seemed to work best for me, though I guess best might not be the right word. Either way, I'm not 100% sure if my setup is even right, but I did end up getting it so. Anyways, after getting lost, some more brain malfunctions, and the bridge warp, we're now in the hardest level of this entire game, at least for me. First, we want to climb up this cage. To do this, we want to position Harry in the middle of this little purple egg, making sure he's either facing right or left, or has his wand put away, or else he'll just get pushed off. Then, as player 2, we want to lift up the egg with Wingardium Leviosa by holding up on the D-pad while simultaneously jumping with Harry. Once we're high enough, we can just get on top of the cage and drop out player 2. Towards the end of the cage, we're going to want to Lumos jump and aim more towards the right of Harry while buffering a jump so that we can get over this barrier. Once over, we want to use this table to Lumos jump on top of this fish tank, and then Lumos jump again onto this banner while also spamming jump. On the banner, you'll be jumping in the same place until you move slightly forward, which should allow you to climb up the air and land up here. Now we're going to want to perform another Lumos jump onto this bridge, and then another Lumos jump to the other side of the bridge, and then another Lumos jump over this gap, another Lumos jump on top of this safe, and one more Lumos jump over this barrier aiming around here. This game is making me lose my mind. What? No, I'm not quit the game, Jesus. My brain already wants to. How am I missing? I don't get it. I'm gonna lose my mind, dude. I'm literally gonna sit here for an hour just trying to get it to work. Why? After that, the level can be finished up normally. After progressing through Hogwarts normally, we're on to the first Triwizards challenge. Thankfully, we only need to use one controller for this entire level. We start off the challenge by running up to this corner and spamming jump until we make it over. Then we want to perform a simple Lumos jump here, aiming around this little corner while also buffering a jump. Then we have another Lumos jump over this gap, and one more that isn't really necessary, but it can save you a split second. Now we're on to the last part of this section. Here we want to land on the left side of this flag and Lumos jump off it, aiming for this specific spot on the ledge so that we can use it to jump off and finish up the section. The next chase sequence plays out as normal, just make sure to switch to whichever character ends up getting further ahead. Now after Cedric gives us the cheat codes and some more 1P2C, we move on to the second Triwizards challenge. Here we want to set Cedric to Reducto and control them until we reach this section. Now we want to position Harry as far as he can go into this corner, making sure he's facing away from the wall. Then we just spam cast onto Harry as fast as possible until you see him go from swimming to just standing, which at that point we can just drop out player 2. As Harry, we want to walk along this path until we fall through the map. Our goal is to land around this little piece of seaweed. The best way I found to do it is just jump right before clipping through the floor and start aiming towards the top left. Once we land, we should start swimming again, this time underneath the map. Now we want to position ourselves around the bottom left of the seaweed and move our thumbstick up right until we can see the floor, after which we can just hold right on the D-pad. We also want to drop in player 2 around this point so we can use him in the next section. We want to do the same thing we did earlier, but instead on this barrier, and this time around, we also want to be moving down left as Harry as we're getting hit so that we can fall into the correct spot. Sometimes you might end up landing a little too high and it won't allow you to move, to which all you have to do is just move downwards slightly. And now all that's left is just to swim right. After we pass this pro, we want to move up towards the trigger so that we can trigger the next room, which we can just finish up as normal. And after some more progression, we move on to the final level of the game, the third Triwizards challenge. The level plays out as normal until we reach this little sphinx. Here we can jump onto its left paw and Lumos jump around it, clipping through it and allowing us to enter the final boss fight. You can either choose to do the final boss fight normally, or you can cheese it by positioning Harry and Cedric right here and just spam casting Reducto while also fighting Voldemort periodically. Anyways, the moment you deal the last heart to Voldemort, the run is over, and we're presented with the best cutscene I've ever seen. Can you believe that it's so much longer than with cutscenes? Okay, this is just so funny. I'm sorry, but Cedric... And then bro gives him a little rebuild plan to put him back together. I'm sorry, I know Cedric's death was sad and all, but this damn game made it so goofy I couldn't help it. But anyways, my first full run of this game clocked in at 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 16 seconds, which honestly isn't that bad. After all, that puts me in about 3rd place, because only 2 other people have finished runs. And yeah, that's the entire speedrun for years 1 through 4. There are still 3 more years to go, with the last one being split into 2 parts, so like and subscribe if you want to see that when I finish learning it. I also spent the last 4 goddamn days non-stop learning this run, and I wanted to give a huge shout out to Captain Poxo, because holy hell, this motherfucker is the only one out here uploading Lego Harry Potter speedrun tutorials to YouTube. I only learned the first 2 years from him though, because as of the time of writing this, September 7th, his last tutorial was on Ridiculous, which is the 2nd level of year 3, but he seems to be uploading tutorials quite frequently, so big ups my man. I wish he had done this sooner though, because trying to learn the years 3 and 4 through just watching the world record speedrun was honestly so confusing. I also left out minor portions of the speedrun because I didn't want to make this video 3 hours long, but if you want to actually see my entire speedrun, I uploaded it on a separate channel, link will be in the description. Warning though, there is a little noise throughout the entire run and it can get annoying to listen to, so just be aware of that. And also, I've kind of been having problems with my left ear where pretty much any noise kept hurting it or bothering it. I mean, it's fine now, but if that happens again, I don't even know what I'm gonna do. Not to mention, my fingers are tired as hell from this goddamn game. So necessarily, this wasn't the best time I've ever had speedrunning a game, to be completely honest, but I still love it. I enjoyed learning this game and I know I'm going to have fun playing the next game. I just wanted to upload this video so that my channel doesn't become a barren wasteland again. And yeah, that's about it. If you watched this whole video, thank you, I love you, and please marry me.